A while back, I had given a brief introduction to a Dragon Ball Z tabletop system. I had later promised a more full rundown of the system as it developed. Without further ado, here it is. Now, this tabletop system is not dedicated to any one die. It's not a D6 system like Shadowrun. It's not a D10 system like Exalted. It's not a D20 system like Pathfinder. It uses all the dice. I haven't yet found a use for, say, D100s or D30s, but I'm certain it's coming. You also don't roll a lot of dice. Generally, it's 1 to 3 dice at a time, even with group attacks. Now, there exists a tabletop game. This manual for the tabletop game is somewhat confusing, and it works well for references, just like all the video games work well for references, but the playability of what's in that book is abysmal. It really, there's a massive amount of die rolling, and it really chokes up play if I have it correctly, which I don't think I have it correctly. Now, I don't have the manga, but I have a considerable amount of Dragon Ball all through DBZ, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super, as well as the movies. All the information you have all works as reference material. Whether it's your players or yourself, it all helps when it comes down to discussing what happens in-game, because it gives you a basis for comparison. Beyond that, there is Kanzenshu, which is a web forum dedicated to being a database for fans of the Dragon Ball universe. And if you really want to see what's this person's power level, what's the multiplier on Legendary Super Saiyan versus regular Super Saiyan, these guys have probably talked about it, and they probably have something ironed out. If not, do that with your friends. Speaking of friends, this all comes down to your mental ability as a moderator in tabletop games. I'll suggest the game works best with 4 to 6 players, including the moderator. That is, you and a party of 3, all the way up to you and a party of 5. Any more than that may be a challenge. It really depends on how things work out for you, but a good start is 3 players. If you have less than 3 players, 1 or 2, well, we know how that turns out. Someone usually dies. That's right at the beginning of the arc when Goku and Piccolo fight Raditz. If you have too many people, then it can clog up the works. It can also become extremely hard to keep track of the pace of battle and where everyone is. A quick note on death before we get into the game. Player death is extremely important. Look at the series. If Goku didn't die against Raditz, Vegeta would have destroyed the Earth. Player death needs to happen throughout the series, or the group won't be able to make the leaps in power necessary to defend the planet. On to character design. Whether it's the NPCs like the Spare Z fighters, helpers, or your villains, or the player characters themselves, they're split into who they are and what they do. Who they are consists of perhaps their race, the types, which is the roles that they fulfill in the group, like healer, etc., etc. Tentatively, I'm limiting them to 7 types. That can be raised with a wish. Any persistent equipment, like armor or scouters, stuff that you don't use up, stuff that stays with you, like even the power pole. What you do, that's where you have your martial arts, your special moves, other skills that persist, like, say, the afterimage technique or being able to sense energy. And it also is where you store your consumable items, things that you do use up, things that don't stay with you, like senzu beans or ammunition. So your race, types, equipment, consumables, special move skills, they're all held together by a ranking system, going from the lowest, rank D, up to the highest, rank Z, or a wish level rank. If you get to put the Dragon Balls together, make a wish. It follows from regular alphabetical order, D, C, B, A, but it goes from A to S and then S to Z. There's also a GT ranking, but that's where I like to put any bullcrap skills like the Namekians and their magical clothes beam. Don't even list it on your sheet. It's just something they do, and it really doesn't matter. The only type I can think of that would be a GT type that wouldn't count or wouldn't really change your character is the arrow type, the erotic type, the pervert type, like Master Roshi. That'd be a GT type. Again, don't even bother listing it. But saying you have a D rank, whether it's a move or a type or even a race, it means you qualify. It means you are able to. You'd be comfortable listing something like a sense energy at a D rank, because anything beyond that, yes, it helps, but you basically just need it. C rank denotes competency. That'd be a comfortable minimum for you to put your flight ability. No one wants to be able to just fly. A C rank means that you are able to fly with some skill. B rank denotes talent. That's where you start to become adept. That's where you'd want to bottom out on your special moves. The lowest ranked special moves you'd want to put at a B or higher. Otherwise, you're going to miss a lot. A rank denotes mastery. That's where you're going to want to put your fighting styles as an A rank minimum. So that way, if you are going to be a fighter, your fighting style actually counts for something. Anything below an A, you haven't put your whole life into it yet, I guess. The S rank, that's where you have your top tier expert moves. Anything A rank or above is where you can actually start teaching other people. S rank is also where you're going to start getting some of the skills that are unique to you. A good example of this, I put down the Makan Ko Sapo, or the Special Beam Cannon. That'd be an S rank skill, or an S rank special move. I don't know that the Destructo Disc would be S rank. It could have started off that way because Krillin was the only one that was able to use it, but later on it gets pretty abused. A Z rank means that you're probably the best on the planet, if not the best in the galaxy. Good examples of Z rank special moves are the Spirit Bomb, or if you've been watching Super, Krillin's Taioken Hyakubai, the 100 times solar flare. Another good example of a Z rank special move would probably be Fusion. And then beyond that, you have your wish level. Now, I've listed Immortal on the what you do side, but Immortal would more like be a type, and that would be a wish level type, and that would give you the wish equivalent of immortality, which we saw with Garlic Jr. Nobody else happened to have gotten it, but that's a brief rundown of the ranking system. We'll see how it plays out more later in the contest, but this is the basis for the character design, is that you get a batch of ranks to work with, and that's where you assign how competent your character is at everything that they do. Now, there is a sort of synergy dynamic I put in the game as well. If you have a type that matches up with your moves, like if you are a Ki Blast type and you have Ki Blast moves, they benefit one another. If they are of the same rank, then when you use said move, it is considered the next rank up in effectiveness. This works for racial abilities too. Most races can take their racial martial arts and get this benefit right away, such as an A rank Namekian race with an A rank Namekian martial arts move, or just a martial arts move set. That is, if you've learned A rank Namekian martial arts and you are an A rank Namekian, when you use those martial arts, they are considered S rank in effect. Next, I'll mention the starting packages for character creation. Use whatever you like. This is the baseline I've started with, for characters starting at the beginning of the Z timeline. That is, when Raditz arrives. You get any one of the 4 columns here for your types, that is, who you are or your roles in the group. Just like any character gen, the more you have, the less effective each is. If you're going to do something like the single S for your types, that would mean that you wanted to be a top tier race, or that'd be good for like a top tier android, or if you're going to be a scientist, you don't have to waste one on your race for being a human, you'd be an S rank scientist. Also, if you wanted to be, let's say, an S rank Saiyan, like Vegeta or Nappa, it basically means that you wouldn't have the weakness when they grab your tail. A rank and below, they've got the weakness when they grab their tail. A highly specialized. The 2As, ABB or BBBB, that is going to water you down a bit, but it gives you a lot more options starting out. It's really, again, how much of a variety you want on your character. And remember, these skills can synergize with your types. If you want to know what you get for your special moves, it's any 2 of these packages combined, really, with the exception that if you decide to highly specialize in a move, you could get 1 Z-rank move starting out, and that's the whole basis for your character. In this case, you probably want to devote that to a martial art, and you're probably either a top-tier Saiyan, Namekian, or Android. All the way down to something like the A with the 6 Bs, that'll give you 6 skills, moves, etc., and it would fuse very well with any of the last 2 starting packs, that is the ABB or the 4B starting pack, to give you everything that you're going to use is A or above. However, that means you have maybe only 1 S option. Again, it's however you want to build your character. It's the whole min-max thing. Now, when it comes down to advancement later on, I'll cover it in depth, but it's basically 2 to 3 times as hard to increase or gain new types or defining characteristics of your player, of your character, as it is to grab new moves or skill sets. On to character gen. We're actually going to generate a Namekian fighter here. Someone that's on the scale of, say, Piccolo when Raditz arrives. You generally want to use an A rank for your race because you want it to count for something. In this case, he'll be able to regrow limbs twice a day, probably able to sense energy just because he's a Namekian's got good stamina, all that. And he also wanted to be an A-rank key blaster. He could have just been a key type, but he likes to throw out them blasts, so I made him an A-rank key blaster. Now when it comes down to the move package, I don't know why I gave him 3 A's. It's supposed to be S-A-B-B, but he's still got the same amount of skills. The S-rank skill will stand by itself. The A-rank skill is going to end up being his martial arts. And when, again, since he has the Namekian martial arts, that means that they will be S-rank in effect when used. He will also have an Energy Dan move, and that would have been B-rank, and his flight would have been B-rank. So he's slightly better than your average flyer. He's good in a dogfight. He can dogfight in the air. Now, the S-rank move that we gave him, he wanted the Destructo Disc, but the Destructo Disc has failed horribly in the series, so I wanted to give him something unique. And since he has an S-rank move, it can be unique to him. In this case, I gave him what I called a Death Star. It functions like the Destructo Disc, only it's one of those 2D cartoon holes, and it takes a cross-section of whatever it hits to the dead zone. So you can't block it, you can't shatter it. Once it touches something, it expands a bit and just deletes it. So there is no... I mean, you can still miss, but there is no real countering the Death Star. We also count the Death Star as a racial special move. So if he happens to rank up his Namekian race, let's say he fuses with Nail, then when he uses the Death Star, it will be Z rank in effectiveness. Now, so you have a fighter, he can fly, he can throw blasts. As a Key Blast type, he can improvise blast. As a Namekian, with Namekian martial arts, he can do the noodly thing. And then we'll also give him a starting power level of 700 to 1,000. So he's right on par there with Piccolo. He doesn't have a big charge-up move, so he won't top out where Piccolo did. He's more of a fighter. Now, you wonder why I give 2 power levels? Well, there's what he is when he's resting, and then there's what he is when he's deepest into the fight. After the Namekian, I'm generating a Saiyan Psychic. This is a helper NPC. Nobody wanted to play a Saiyan, so I made a unique Goku character. This was the first one that landed on Earth and hit their head or whatever. In this case, it was a chick, and she went the Psychic route. Saiyans can do that. It's been shown. Even Goku reads minds. Bardock could see the future. So, what I have for her, and she's fairly lackluster because, I mean, Saiyans are wasted if they're not warriors. So what I have for her is I took the ABB starting package, made her an A-rank Saiyan for her types, and I made her a B-rank Psychic, which makes her, again, adept at it. She's not a master yet. Chaozu would be a good rank of an A-rank, a good example of an A-rank Psychic. And then I also made her a B-rank Transformation type, because she's still going to have her tail. And you don't need to have a transformation type to have transformation moves, but again, they synergize. And in this case, since she's a B-rank transformation type, which is just under Master, then when she becomes the mighty Ozaru, she won't lose her mind. She'll be able to talk. She'll probably be able to use some of her skills. And when she transforms back or is forced out of a transformation by either the moon disappearing, the blood sword being destroyed, or her tail being cut off, she won't be as vulnerable for as long, or she won't be as drained or as exhausted for as long, because she's taken the time to gain skill with her transformation. And this transformation type will transfer over. Let's say she ends up becoming Super Saiyan, or she gets the Golden Ozaru form, or she becomes Legendary Super Saiyan, or she gets Super Saiyan 2, 3, 4. This benefits them all in that same way, that they won't burn her out as fast because she works with them. She's a transformation type. She can stay in them longer.